It's the Yoba series.
The third diet or lifestyle choice that I would recommend my clients is calorie counting or macro tracking. So calorie counting is kind of quite a difficult one. It tends to be something where people get it really wrong really quickly. The reason that this is because I believe that there are guidelines to how many calories you should eat per day, but actually what a lot of people don't realize is that the calories that you burn per day are individual to you. Okay, so if you're someone who sits a lot, or you sit behind a computer, or you're not a very active individual, the amount of calories that you burn compared to someone who's very busy and does do a lot of activity and a lot of sport will have a different consumption need to the other. So basically what I mean is someone who sits behind a computer all day will only need a certain limited amount of calories because their body will be burning a low amount of energy, whereas compared to someone who's a postman or a postwoman will actually have a higher amount of calories because they're moving more, and it's literally based on that reason. Macro tracking slightly goes into the same thing. So for example, if you had an individual who was relatively active and we worked out that they needed roughly 2,500 to 2,600 calories per day for that individual, taking into account their sex, their age, their height and their activity level, basically what we'd say is that the macronutrients that they would need would be of a certain percentage. So they're looking to hit a certain percentage of macros per day. The macros, as I've said before, are proteins, fats and carbohydrates. Now what we generally tend to do is we generally tend to look at the amount of protein that one is getting, and we also look at the amount of carbohydrate that one is getting. So when I've been working with clients, I've always tried to make sure that their carbohydrate intake is quite low. So what do I mean by low? Well, it can be as low as 50 grams per day. It can be in the middle region of 100 to 150, but I don't really work with any clients who have over 150 to 200 grams of carbohydrates per day because I believe that's a little bit too high. Remember that my clients are people who are trying to either reverse their diabetes, lower their cholesterol, or actually just trying to lose weight. So we are trying to stay under 150 grams of carbohydrate per day, but this does depend on the individual. So for calorie counting and macro tracking, I'm actually going to use myself as an example. The reason why I'm using myself as an example is because I understand how to track macros, and I use a macro tracker or a calorie counter, which is called MyFitnessPal. There are lots of others online that you can download, but MyFitnessPal tends to be the one that I go to. Now, I have done it for a period of time and I've lost a lot of weight, or I've done it just to be able to keep on top of my general intake per day. So very briefly, when I joined the fitness industry, I was someone who had put on quite a lot of weight. And the reason I put on quite a lot of weight is because I was trying to bulk up and I was trying to become sort of more muscular, and I wasn't eating bad foods, but I was eating a lot of calories and I got quite heavy and I wasn't very happy with my look, and so I decided to go on a diet. And the diet that I chose to do was basically where I wanted to lower all the way down to a certain body fat percentage. So in order to achieve this the best way I could, I decided that I was going to start at 3,800 calories, and over a 12-week period I was going to drop all the way down to 3,000 calories. Now you must remember that my job is as a physiotherapist and also a personal trainer, and I also train between 4 to 5 times a week in the gym, and I have quite an active job. So with all of those things totaled, I actually didn't want to lose too much muscle mass. I wanted to be able to keep my muscle tone, and I wanted to be able to lose body fat. So I started at 3,800 calories per day, and over 12 weeks I dropped those calories all the way down to 3,000. In my experience, I am an individual who quite likes a challenge. I quite like someone giving me a challenge, or if I read something that intrigues me, especially when it comes to food or especially when it comes to training, I quite like the idea of a challenge. So in terms of being very, very strict with the amount of calories that I was taking in per day and where I was getting those calories from was something that very much interested me. The Things that I would say about calorie and macro tracking is that it is kind of a science. So it's definitely something that I think a lot of people can get really great results from if they stick to it. But I would probably say it's one of the hardest things to stick to. It's much harder than keto dieting. It's much harder than intermittent fasting. You basically are a human laboratory which is using an exact science on yourself. So let's say by any given day I was only allowed to eat 3,400 calories, and that I was only allowed to eat a certain amount of carbohydrate, and I was only allowed to consume a certain amount of fat. Or of that carbohydrate, let's say I was only allowed to consume a certain amount of sugar. That was all quite complex. It all took quite a lot of time, and it certainly is something that I don't think many people would like to do, because I don't feel that people have a lot of time when it comes to their diets, and that's completely fine. So what I would recommend with calorie counting and macro tracking is that it actually teaches you what you consume. So I'd like to give you a challenge. The challenge would be is that if you track between 3 to 5 days all the food that you consume and put it into an app such as MyFitnessPal, you'll be able to see how much you're actually intaking. You actually be able to see how many calories you're taking in per day, what type of calories they are, and also the amount of what macros you're kind of tending to go towards. So let's say that you're someone who eats quite a lot of breads, pastas, sometimes you had the odd treat here and there. The carbohydrate that you intake will be quite high, and that might be one of the reasons as to why you're storing weight so easily. The other thing is that you are creating a food diary. When you're tracking food, when you're tracking calories, you're actually keeping a diary of what you consume, and it's quite hard for an individual to be able to remember what they ate last Friday. Whereas when you're using an app such as MyFitnessPal, it allows you to go back to what you actually ate, and it allows you to look at what you're doing, and therefore you can start to make choices and decisions of how to eat better and how to track better, and just track every single thing that you have, wherever, even if it's something the size of a pea or a peanut. Just put it in on your MyFitnessPal or any calorie tracking app, and just see what your diet looks like when it's written down. I guarantee that it will help you, and it will probably also surprise you. Remember, you need to make sure that you're not over consuming, and also importantly that you're not under consuming, because if you're under consuming, what you're going to do is you're going to start to lower your metabolism, and your body's going to struggle to lose weight because it doesn't want to drop weight, because basically it's not having enough energy, it's not having enough fuel. So the pros to calorie tracking or macro tracking are that they will lose weight. As I said before, it almost is an exact science because it's been worked out for you as an individual. It does allow you to track the foods that you're consuming, and it does give you a reflection on what you can change and what you can improve on, and how you can get better at just generally improving your diet. The negatives of this type of diet or lifestyle change are that it can be quite restrictive, it can be very, very repetitive, and it can also get quite boring. And also it does take up an awful amount of time because you're constantly weighing food, you're tracking food, which means you're writing it in a diet diary such as MyFitnessPal. And I think that after a period of time you kind of start to get a little bit disillusioned with it. When I've been working with clients before, I always make sure that they only do a very, very short amount of time on calorie tracking and macro tracking, just because I don't want them to get bored with the idea of losing weight. I want them to lose weight. They want to lose weight. They have employed me to lose weight. However, when you're trying to lose weight with a client, or whether you're trying to lose weight yourself, it's very, very important that you have an understanding of what you're doing currently so that you can move forward from that. If you don't understand what you're doing currently, then you won't be able to lose weight well. You might lose weight on all three of these diets. So if you look at the keto diet, if you look at the intermittent fasting diet, and if you look at the calorie or macro tracking diet, you will lose weight on all of these, but you want to think about this in the long term. Are you going to do this because you want to lose weight and then you want to stop at a certain time, because if you do, then that's really more of a diet, and a diet doesn't really work. Diets don't really work for individuals because they only are ever temporary. They're only something that are going to lose weight for you, but you don't learn anything. But if you choose a diet which is going to affect your lifestyle for the positive, and it's actually going to help you to lose weight over a long period of time, it's going to be something that you want to do, and it's going to be something that you want to be able to keep doing for a long period of time. Over that long period of time, you are going to naturally just lose weight because you're going to be eating better, you're going to be eating at better times, and you're going to be, sort of quite importantly, preparing your food, preparing your meals, thinking about what you're eating. Those factors I don't think diets always consider. So it is more the fact that keto dieting, intermittent fasting, and also calorie tracking and macro tracking are all things that I feel are the 3 ways in which you can successfully lose weight, but you can also successfully continue to do those things for a long period of time. You could possibly look at it as a lifestyle change forever. Now, one thing that I would like you to consider is the fact that if you took 2 of those 3 diets and merge them together, you probably would actually have some fantastic results. So for example, if you took ketogenic dieting and also intermittent fasting and merged them together, they actually do quite a lot for you. The ketogenic dieting would probably teach you to eat better because you're not allowed to be able to eat so much processed carbohydrate. And the intermittent fasting would actually help you control that in a window of time. Therefore, you wouldn't need the 3rd diet, which is calorie and macro tracking, because you're kind of doing it a different way. You're macro tracking because you're eating a ketogenic diet, which is there to basically be able to control what you are and what you're not going to choose to have, because it needs to be more fat and protein rich. The contents of your food needs to have those macros in it. And then also, rather than counting calories, you're more counting time, which is much easier, because all you've got to do it is in stages. So you've got to say, the first stage of my day, I'm generally not going to eat. Then the second stage of my day, which let's say breaks at 12 p.m, I'm going to eat, and I'm allowed to eat all the way through till 8 p.m. That's the second stage. And the third stage is basically going to be, well, when I stop eating is basically when I'm going to rest, I'm going to go to sleep. And again, I'm not going to break that all the way around until the next day, which could possibly be 12 p.m. or it could be a different time, but you get the point. The point is that you're eating within a window of time. And again, if you're choosing something such as ketogenic dieting, you are eating better forms or better quality food. On the other hand, you could use calorie counting and macro tracking as a way to keep a diary, very simply for a week to 2 weeks, so that you can see what you're doing. You could then look at your diary and make better choices through the ketogenic diet. So with the ketogenic diet, you're going to be having less processed carbohydrates, and you're hopefully going to be upping the amount of protein, fat and fiber that you're having, and therefore you can add that into your MyFitnessPal and see how that works for you. For example, if you've got a week where you're eating your normal diet and then you're going to review those types of foods, and you're going to say, oh, okay, actually I'm eating quite a lot of processed carbohydrate here, my sugar is really high for that day. And then you look at the ketogenic diet where you're going to say, well, I'm only allowed a certain amount of carbohydrate per day, what do I choose to have? That's going to make a very big difference. It's going to be very impactful on your overall outlook of how you're going to choose to eat, and over a period of time that will have a really successful result in terms of you losing weight overall, and also helping other things such as diabetes, high blood pressure and cholesterol, high cholesterol. So guys, I hope you found this video insightful, and it also gives you a way in which you can choose to lose weight successfully through the How to Diet and Do It Correctly series. I hope this video has been helpful to you. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and also comment below. It helps me make more great content for you. It also helps the YT algorithm so the video can get more views, so I can help other people. Choose the right diet that works for you. Be fit, be healthy, and of course, be a boss bar.
It's the Yo Bossy Wish.